Hi, this is Mr. Gazelle, and in this lesson I want to talk about adding signed numbers or combining signed numbers. In arithmetic, which is the type of math that people typically study in elementary school and middle school, you would talk more about adding and subtracting. But in algebra, we often kind of combine those two things and call them combining. And by signed numbers, I just mean positive and negative numbers. So adding or combining signed numbers really means problems that look like this. In this case, if we are combining a positive 3 with a positive 5. And really, it's the same thing in this next problem. We're combining a positive 3 with a positive 5. In the next 4 problems here, we are combining a negative 3 with a negative 5. Same thing here, we're combining a negative 3 with a negative 5. Same thing in the next problem, actually. This could be looked at as combining a negative 3 with a negative 5. And same thing in the next one as well. This could be looked at combining a negative 3 with a negative 5. The next row here, we're mixing positive and negative numbers. So we're combining a negative 3 with a positive 5. Same thing here, combining a negative 3 with a positive 5. And really that's the same thing here. We're combining a negative 3 with a positive 5. And in the last row, we're also mixing positive and negative numbers. So we're combining here a positive 3 with a negative 5. Same thing in the next one. We're combining a positive 3 with a negative 5. Whoops. Try that again. Positive 3 with a negative 5. And here as well, we're combining a positive 3 with a negative 5. So I find that oftentimes algebra students are familiar with this type of problem. At some point they've memorized the rules to solving this type of problem. But when you memorize rules, it's easy to forget them. And I find that a lot of students end up getting these problems wrong when they're doing them because they just don't remember the rules. And sometimes I think that's because they didn't dedicate enough mental energy to sort of understand why these problems work the way that they do. And so I think it might be helpful to go over 2 models for understanding combined signed numbers. The first one I call the ladder model. So we can imagine that we have this ladder, and this red line here represents the ground. So the ladder goes both below the ground and above the ground. Ground level is 0, and positive numbers mean that we're climbing the ladder. Negative numbers mean that we're going down the ladder. So in this case, we are combining a positive 3 with a positive 5. So that means we're going to go up and then up again. Starting at the ground at 0, we're going to go up 3. And that takes us to 3, the third rung on the ladder. And then we're going to go up 5 more. So from where we left off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that takes us to ladder rung number 8. So when we go up 3 and then up 5, that's like going up 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. Well, in our next example, it's very similar, only now we're going down the ladder. And so we are combining negative 3 with negative 5. So we're going to go down the ladder, and then we're going to go down some more. So starting at ground level, 0, we go down 3, and then we go down 5 more, which takes us again to negative 8 on the ladder. So negative 3 and negative 5 is negative 8. Well, things get a little bit more interesting when we start mixing positive and negative numbers. Here, we're combining a negative 3 with a positive 5. So that means we're going to go down the ladder a little bit, and then we're going to climb back up the ladder again. Again, starting at ground level, we're going to go down 3. So now we're 3 rungs underground. And then from there, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, back to ground level, 4, 5. And we end up on the second rung of the ladder. So going down 3 and then up 5 really ends up the same as if we would have gone up 2. So a negative 3 and a positive 5 is a positive 2. And this case is similar. We're going to start by going up 3 rungs on the ladder, and then we're going to go down 5. So starting always at ground level, we go up 3. It takes us to rung 3 on the ladder, and then from there, go down 5. 1, 2, 3, back to ground level, 4, 5. And we end up at negative 2. So 3 combined with negative 5 gets us negative 2. Let's look at a couple more examples, and then I'm going to show you another model for looking at combining signed numbers. So in this case, we've got 1 plus negative 1. We're combining 1 with negative 1. And so if I go up 1 step, and then from there go down 1 step, I end up back at 0 again. Another way to look at this is I can look at this 1 with one little plus sign, and I can look at this negative 1 as one little negative sign. I'm representing 1 with a single plus, and I'm representing negative 1 with a single minus. Well, if I go up 1 and then down 1, I end up back at 0 again. So I can kind of say that plus 1 and minus 1 cancel each other out. 1 plus negative 1 just gets me back to ground level again, or 0. This similar example here, we're combining negative 2 with positive 2. So we could represent negative 2 with 2 little negative signs. Here they are, 1 and 2. And I could represent positive 2 with 2 little plus signs, 1 and 2. And 2 positive signs cancel out 2 negative signs. If I have the same number of negatives and positives, they cancel each other out. Because if I go up 2 on the ladder, and then I go down 2 on the ladder, it gets me back to 0 again. And that's the other model that I think is helpful for looking at combining signed numbers. If I've got positive 5 and positive 3, that's like combining 5 positives, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with 3 positives, 1, 2, and 3. So when I combine 5 positives with 3 positives, I end up with even more positives, or in this case, positive 8. Similarly, if I combine negative 5 with negative 3, I could represent the negative 5 with 5 little negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I could represent this negative 3 with 3 little negatives. 1, 2, and 3. If I combine 5 negatives with 3 negatives, I get even more negatives. So negative 5 and negative 3 gives me negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 8. Now again, things get a little bit more interesting when we start combining positive and negative numbers. So here, if I'm combining positive 5 with negative 3, I could represent positive 5 with 5 little plus signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I could represent negative 3 with 3 little negative signs. 1, 2, 3. And 3 of these plus signs are going to cancel out these 3 negative signs. So, try that again. These 3 cancel out these 3. Going up 3 on the ladder and down 3 on the ladder just gets me back to 0 anyway, and then I still have positive 2 left over. So a positive 5 combined with a negative 3 is a positive 2. It makes sense that if I started out with 5 positives and 3 negatives, I'm going to end up with a positive number because I had more positives to start with. So when I cancel some of them out, I'm going to have positives left over. Here, if I combine a negative 5 with a positive 3, I can represent negative 5 with 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can represent positive 3 with 3 positives. 1, 2, 3. Now 3 of these negatives are going to cancel out 3 of these positives. And in this case, since I have more negatives, there are going to be 2 negatives left over. So my answer is negative 2. So even though I don't always solve these problems anymore, I've been doing this for years, by writing out little negatives and positives or by drawing a ladder going up and down into the ground, it still helps me to think about these models when I'm adding and combining positive and negative numbers and deciding whether my answer is going to be positive or negative in the end and things like that. So hopefully these models help you as well. Thank you.